Nobody chose dogs. Not one human in the entire history of our species ever sat down and said, I am going to take that animal, the one that hunts in packs, that can smell you from a mile away, that has been killing our people since before we had fire, and I am going to make it sleep in my bed. It did not happen. Dogs exist because of a mistake. There are 900 million of them on Earth right now, and that mistake completely changes what you think you know about the animal lying near you right now. So, in this video, we are going to cover how wolves engineered their own transformation without human help, what that process physically did to their brains, and why the bond you have with your dog is not what either of you thinks it is. Here's the thing most people get wrong about dog domestication. They assume it started with humans, that some ancient person saw a wolf pup and decided to keep it, that we were in control of this from the beginning. But if you look at the actual timeline, that version of events is almost impossible. 30,000 years ago, there were no dogs. There were wolves and there were humans, and both were doing the same thing, moving constantly across Ice Age landscapes, hunting the same prey, freezing in the same winters. These were not two species with any reason to cooperate. Wolves were apex predators. Humans were prey to them. And yet somewhere in that frozen world, the first step toward your dog was taken, not by a human, by a wolf who made a calculated decision about food. Here is what most people assume happened. Humans found wolf pups, raised them, and slowly domesticated them over generations of intentional breeding. It's a nice story. It is also almost certainly wrong, because the timeline does not support it. The genetic divergence between wolves and dogs begins 30,000 years ago. Agriculture, the point where humans first started systematically controlling animal reproduction, begins 10,000 years ago. There is a 20,000-year gap that intentional human breeding cannot fill. What actually happened starts with garbage. Hunter-gatherer camps left behind bones, offcuts, carcasses. For a wolf burning thousands of calories chasing dangerous prey across frozen ground, a human campsite was something extraordinary. Free food, no risk of injury, no failed hunt. The wolves that could tolerate being close enough to collect those scraps had a survival edge, a small, consistent edge. Repeated over thousands of generations, that edge is all evolution needs. The aggressive wolves got speared when they got too close. The ones too frightened stayed back and starved. A third group, sitting in the narrow band between those two extremes, got close enough to eat without triggering a human response. Those wolves survived better, bred more. Their pups inherited that fractionally reduced fear. Those pups ate too. A 2025 study in Proceedings of the Royal Society B modeled this process and found it could realistically unfold over 15,000 years through natural selection alone, with no human involvement whatsoever. So the wolf did not wait for humans to choose it. It chose proximity to humans because proximity paid. By the time any human looked at a wolf and thought about keeping it, the wolf was already partway there. We were not the architects of this. We were the food supply. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. If this is how domestication works, it means the entire transformation from wolf to dog, the floppy ears, the wagging tail, the thing your dog does with its face when it looks at you, all of it could happen without anyone deliberately selecting for any of it. That sounds wrong. Animals do not just reorganize themselves because of food scraps. Except that in 1959, a Soviet geneticist proved that they more or less do. Most people, when they think about where dogs come from, picture a slow, deliberate process, humans selectively breeding for desired traits across hundreds of generations. That's how we got pugs, retrievers, border collies. But that's not how we got the first dogs, and Dmitry Belayev, working in Novosibirsk, Siberia, decided to test what would actually happen if you removed the deliberate part entirely. His experiment was almost insultingly simple. He took silver foxes and bred only the tamest ones each generation, Not the most physically useful, not the strongest or the fastest, just the ones least afraid of humans. That was the only criterion. No physical trait was ever selected for, not once, across the entire experiment. By the sixth generation, fox pups were competing with each other for the attention of the handlers. By the eighth generation, they were wagging their tails, whining when handlers left, licking hands when offered. And then the bodies started changing. Ears went floppy, tails curled, coat patterns broke into patches. The faces softened. Juvenile features that should have disappeared in adulthood started persisting. Belayev had touched exactly one variable and gotten a completely different animal in exchange. By 1999, 70 to 80% of fox pups were showing dog-like behavior before they were 1 month old. So tameness is not just a behavioral trait, it is a door. Step through it once, through one single selection pressure, and a cascade of physical and behavioral changes follows automatically. That is what was happening at Ice Age campsites for 20,000 years before any human even understood what domestication was. Now, most people stop the story here. Wolf got tame, became dog, the end. But there is something underneath the floppy ears and the wagging tail that almost nobody talks about, because the thing that really changed was not the body, it was the brain. And what happened to the dog brain during domestication is the reason your dog is not simply a tame wolf. It is something the world has genuinely never seen before. When people think about the difference between a dog and a wolf, they usually think about behavior. Dogs are friendly, wolves are not. Dogs follow commands, wolves do not. But that framing misses what actually happened neurologically, which is far stranger. A 2025 study published in the Journal of Neuroscience compared brain scans of modern breed dogs against pre-modern dogs, the ancient lineages with far less human-directed selection. Modern breeds showed significant cortical expansion in regions tied to social cognition and trainability. At the same time, their amygdala, the brain's primary fear and threat detection structure, was measurably smaller, less fear capacity, more social processing, more capability to read the emotional state of another species in real time. Research on gene expression in the dog hypothalamus shows it diverged rapidly from the wolf baseline, specifically in pathways governing stress hormones and emotional regulation. The dog brain is not a calmer wolf brain. It is a structurally different brain that processes social information through a completely different architecture. And here's what that difference actually produces. When a human and a dog hold eye contact, both release oxytocin, the same hormone that bonds human parents to their newborn children. Wolves do not do this with humans, only dogs. That response was not there before domestication. It emerged because animals that could trigger oxytocin release in humans survived better, got fed more, got protected more, and bred more. Dogs did not just get tamer, they evolved the neurochemical machinery to make you feel bonded to them. So when your dog looks at you and you feel something, that is not anthropomorphization. That is a 30,000-year-old biological mechanism refined across thousands of generations, doing exactly what it was shaped to do. The wolf chose proximity for the food. What it accidentally created was the only animal on Earth that can make you feel like a parent by holding eye contact. Now, knowing all of this, there is one fact about dogs that most people have never been told, and once you hear it, the relationship between dogs and humans starts to look very different from anything we have with any other animal on Earth. Most people assume dogs are one of many animals humans brought into their domestic world, alongside cattle, sheep, pigs, chickens, part of the same project of civilization. That assumption is wrong in a way that matters. Dogs are the only domesticated animal that predates agriculture. Every other species humans ever domesticated came after farming, after permanent settlements, after humans stopped being nomadic. Dogs came first, by thousands of years, which means this was not a relationship built in the comfort of a farming village. It was built by two nomadic species, both moving constantly, both surviving at the edge, who figured out the other was more valuable alive and nearby than ignored.
Before writing, before metal tools, before any structure we would recognize as civilization, humans and dogs were already operating as a unit. In Germany, archaeologists found a burial from roughly 14,000 years ago, a man, a woman, a dog placed carefully alongside them. The dog had survived a severe illness as a puppy, which means someone nursed it through weeks of sickness, spending food and energy they could not easily spare, at a time when a bad winter could kill an entire group. Some anthropologists now argue that human groups with dogs simply outsurvived groups without them. Not that dogs followed human expansion across the planet, that they made it possible. So dogs did not join human civilization, they predate it. They may have helped build it. The animal you think of as a companion was, for most of its history with us, something closer to infrastructure. So did we invent dogs by mistake? The answer is closer to we barely invented them at all. A few wolves made a bet. Proximity to something terrifying was worth the calories. That bet compounded over 30,000 years into an animal with a structurally different brain, a neurochemical bond with humans that mirrors parent and child, and a relationship with our species that is older than anything else we have ever built. Not a tamed predator, not a working animal, something the evolutionary record had never produced before and has not produced since. The wolf that first crept toward that campfire was trying to survive the winter. It had no idea what it was starting.
When your dog circles before lying down, that is an Ice Age wolf flattening grass that has not existed for 30,000 years. When it twitches in its sleep, those are ancient hunting instincts still firing. The wolf is still in there. It just also learned to make you feel like family. But the next time your dog looks at you and you feel that thing, you will know exactly what it is. 30,000 years of a deal still running.